Welcome back to the Manage to Win podcast. I'm your host, David Russell. Today's episode is sponsored by Habitly. Hey, do you ever have your anger flare? Do you have somebody in your team that yells at people or gets really angry when a client mistreats them? We have an entire course on Habitly called Workplace Drama. It can help anyone maintain their cool, learn how to step away, learn how to not get angry. A lot of other great stuff on Habitly.com, 7 days free. Check it out. You can't go wrong. Today's episode on the Manage to Win podcast is Johnny Serpilla. He's written a book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay. And he used to run Camping World, be one of the top 2 leaders there. He's had tremendous success, but he's also had tremendous hardship. And I love this podcast. A lot of good stuff for you. Let's dive in. Johnny, I'm really excited to have you on the show today. I love your story and I'm just learning it. But in today's environment, personally and professionally, it sounds like your new book is something a lot of people need to read. So tell us, what are you doing? What's up?
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me. And I got to tell you, I love the name of your podcast because I think we all every day are trying to figure out how to manage to win, right? And so as I've listened to your podcast for a while and I, saw the cool topics that you cover from business and going deep on different things and stories, it's an honor to be here. So I got to say my first thought on Manage to Win, that my own take on that is I'm very competitive by nature. But what I've learned to do over time is I want to manage to win in a win-to-win, in a win-win scenario, right? Versus the win-lose scenario. And so my business career, I loved finding those win-wins. I found at times those win-losses have a short-term dopamine rush. And then after that, you realize that maybe there are some other ways that we could have, brought more in and helped more and even helped some other businesses along. So the Manage to Win, my take on it is, yes, we want to manage to win. And my story, my book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay, really chronicles how my wife and I managed to win in saving our marriage after tragedy, managed to win in terms of bringing life lessons that we learned through difficult scenarios into our work life, and then ultimately to thrive rather than survive.
Wow. Well, I thought of like 20 questions to ask, but I don't think I should drive the questions because it sounds like you really have a story to start with that gives us a little more detail in somewhere in there, wherever you want to dive in, because quite frankly, the whole concept that I don't think a lot of leaders think about it, that you have a win-loss. They think, I got the win, but they don't realize they destroyed a relationship or, something else. And they don't realize the win-win piece. They're just so driven. But anyway, where do you want to start, Johnny?
Well, I'll go into my story. I got to comment on what you just said because I love what you said. And when I think about winning, I oftentimes think, at what cost? At what cost do I want to win? At what cost do I want my team to win? And as a leader, we have to manage that and manage those expectations for our team because it determines their actions. Maybe they're unethical actions if we are saying that we're going to win at any cost, right? And so we got to be very intentional with our leadership and the words that we use to ensure that someone else on our team, and I was blessed to lead thousands of people in a company, that their own interpretation of we need to win could be a very different action plan than mine. And so as my career grew and as our company grew, I realized that. And so relationships that you mentioned is key. There's just not a lot of good things I see about burning relationships. And I've seen people in business do that too often. And maybe in some cases as a sport and enjoying it and feeling like, this is what you do in corporate America. This is what, big players do in a big space. And, it spreads more negativity in the world. It creates more harsh feelings. And ultimately, the people that lose in those scenarios have their circle of influence where they take that negative energy and they spread it forward to them, where they can exert control. And that might be in their own household, that they then have children that receive the losing end of that control that they're exerting because they had it taken from them in a win-loss scenario or in a beaten down scenario. So as a leader, I'm very, very careful and mindful of that.
But, yeah. And, I'm sorry, it's going to be difficult not to interrupt because you cover such profound stuff so quickly. But it's, this thing where leaders forget that we're developing people, whether we're doing it intentionally because we got a strong company culture and we're really being intentional in the way we lead and we have our culture, or we're doing it unintentionally because we got 47 different cultures going on in our company, which is something you alluded to, that, if I'm not driving a certain behavior carefully, it can be negative. Like when Wells Fargo they had to lay off all these people because they had just gone for the bonus and faked the documents, or Enron, whatever we want to go back to. But this other piece where we're developing people and how they behave at work often translates to how they behave at home. And I noticed that you're very much into encouraging adoption. I've adopted 5 kids. And I love what you said is you have 3 kids and one of them's adopted. You can't remember which. I love that line. That is so awesome. But I have so many people out there today, I believe the majority, who are parenting instinctively based on how we were raised, which is natural. But we're all raised by broken parents. I was raised by very loving parents, but they raised me in certain ways that were very unhealthy, even though they were very loving. And,
right.
and I'm sorry, I'm going down a rabbit trail. Why don't you take back the reins where you want to go?
All right.
I love where you're
again,
going.
We're going to piggyback off of each other well in this. I think number one for a leader, their number one job, if you accept the job as manager, supervisor, director, boss, VP, president, whatever it is, you need to realize that it's your job to come to work making others successful. And if you don't recognize that and you don't own that and you don't take seriously that you have other people's careers that are relying on and counting on your leadership, you should give up that post. Because most people do it because they want the career growth, they want the bigger paycheck and all those things. But what they don't realize at times is that comes as a result of putting your energy towards growing your team, making them successful. And when your team is successful, side note, you too become more successful. And that, as the water rises, all boats go up with it. And if you're leading that boat, right, you're going to go up. And so, it's transparent so often today that leaders that are self-serving and they're about their own career and willing to step on the backs of others. And it's really unfortunate because there is an honor associated with being a leader and having that responsibility. And many people miss that. So I have to touch on that. And then, going into the adoption piece, that's part of our journey as well. And I love, I would tell that to my kids when they were little. And I got my son, a couple times in trouble with his buddies because they're like, Mr. Serpilla, Bo said he's adopted. I don't believe it. I don't think that's true. And I'd say, what, guys, one of my kids is. I am so sorry. I don't know. I don't remember which one, but I have a file at home. So tomorrow night at basketball practice, I'll go home tonight and I'll check and I'll see who's adopted because I got it written somewhere. And then I'll come and tell you. And they're like, Bo, see, we told you were lying. And Bo's looking at me like, Dad, you can't leave me hanging here. I'm the one that's adopted. And I said, dude, I don't remember. But anyway, my point in saying that is just, our prayers after we struggled to build a family was for God to send us the people that we were meant to raise. And whoever they came from, whatever country they came from, whatever color they were, anything, just send them to us because it was far too big for us to try, and me as a control freak, to try to control our struggles having children. And so, he sent us 3 and the biology is just the least interesting part about my kids.
That's cool. That's cool. Though, let me go back to the book. So the book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay. I mean, we could choose a variety of topics today that would illustrate life is hard. I'm not going to go down those rabbit trails. I'll let you go down any one you want to. But talk to me, what led you to write the book? And what is this message that's trying to help people understand while we're amidst this culture of comparison? That, hey, yeah, it's hard. It's not all roses, but, I'll be okay.
So the subtitle of the book is The Power of Hope, Emerging Through Pain and Learning to Live with Gratitude. And so for us, what that meant, that's the headline there, but our story is the backstory. And our story, in covering it briefly, is we were young and married and ready to start a family, and our careers were going on fire. And my wife's career was amazing, and she was making more money than me. She was killing it. I thought I was the smart one with the better grades and trying to get her to interview more. And she was, I'll figure it out. And she just crushes me with a better job, making more money, and all good. And so, careers were going great, but we didn't define our success by our checkbook. It was really having a family. And so when we started to try to have a family, it was a disaster. And it took years before we finally became pregnant, and we became pregnant with triplets. And we had Nicholas, Mary, and Peter. We had 2 sons and a daughter that passed away 27 years ago, shortly after they were born. And our life was shattered. Thank you. And we were just in a dark place, Dave. I mean, we felt failure at levels that we didn't know. We saw darkness that we never knew. And we didn't know our way out of that. And over time, and ultimately in the book chronicles 13 different humans that were potentially our children before we end up with the 3 that we've raised that are 22, 24, and 26, Bo, Bella, and Stone. So the book chronicles that journey through about 6 years of our lives falling apart, and through challenges and horrible medical situations with my wife, and adoptions that failed internationally, and all sorts of things. And also a little bit touching on the issue of biology and some of the processing of having a biological child shortly after having an adopted child. And we use the term that we had Bo versus got Bo. I don't know. That's just our words that we put around it. And so, the book talks about all of that. So it's really the backstory of emerging through pain and finding gratitude. And I was able to take these principles shortly after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, our triplets, after their funeral, when I had to return to my family business that was growing, and I was leading the company because my dad got sick with cancer. And so by 28, I was on my own leading the business, and we were just lost and broken and spending a lot of time at a cemetery, and life was really, really hard. And I wasn't prepared for life to be hard. I was part of the lucky ones. Susan and I were blessed with committed, amazing parents that were strict. We had boundaries. We had ethics and rules that we had to follow. We were educated, and we were just focused on getting things done, and we got things done. And, I think I had a false sense of belief that many of us can have, where we just think that it's one accomplishment in life after the next, and we're on this upward trajectory. And those who, I'm going to say this, had struggles younger are blessed in a way. And we feel fortunate that we had devastation happen in our 20s, because it's changed us in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. But those who had struggles earlier had a resilience and something in their DNA differently than we had. And we learned that, oh my gosh, this happened. We never questioned why us, why me. We never went down that path, because bad things happen to good people every day, all over the world. We never thought that we were exempt from that, but we were like, wow, this is our turn now. And so, I learned to find beauty in the brief lives that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter had. And as humans, we always want more. We want more of every good thing that we have, whether it's a piece of chocolate cake, or it's a good movie, or it's a great relationship. We want more. And what we had to learn, and through the help of a wonderful psychologist that's worked with us for years, and now Dr. Fordyce, Barb, and I do public speaking together. We work with companies to help them on executive coaching and leadership, and really navigating through these tough times and negativity in the world. And we could talk more about that. But she taught us cognitive reshaping techniques. And she writes the afterword in the book and outlines all of those, that I could take the experiences that we had that were tragic and see them as so much more than tragic. Because for your children's lives to be defined as a tragedy, I just feel too deeply to say that I could just go on living and try to be happy that way. So for me, I had to find the beauty, the blessings, and find gratitude for their lives and learn to accept that the time that they were alive, that's not going to change. And so we're going to be grateful for it, that we got to have that experience of being their parents and holding our children from their birth until their death.
I'm wondering, my experience with children who go into foster care or get adopted, they've all endured trauma. Simply the removal from the home and being in foster care, although it's a safer place often, or all the time, they wouldn't be there. Well, sometimes foster care can be tragically negative, even dangerous. But what you're talking about, have you seen people, I don't know whether you've done it in your own family, who have also kind of discussed this concept with a child at some point in their life to help them understand how to process what they've been through and not have it weigh them down as that negative accusatory voice of you're not good enough constantly or you're whatever, but actually flipping it like you're saying and being able to fight back and saying, I'm going to apply what I went through for good to be stronger moving forward.
I love that question and that whole conversation there, Dave, because my son, Bo, in his life right now is going through that at 26 years old. So we got Bo at a day old. So he, had no attachment that he knew that, he was taken from. But that doesn't mean that somewhere in his soul and in his mind that there wasn't an imprint of abandonment that, he talked about and talks about today. It's interesting that we processed adopting Bo we were 29 when we adopted him. And it was 9 months almost to the day that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died. And we processed that as adults, mature brains, mature adulthood, us as a couple deciding to do this, done. We adopted this baby and he's our own. And society struggled with that a little bit. They question sometimes comments made to us of, that's the next best thing. And, we kind of didn't feel like we had the runner-up prize in our son. He's this amazing, amazing man today. He was an amazing baby and little boy. So we didn't get the second prize. We won the lottery. And so, or, comments of, how tall is his dad? I'm 6'1". Why you ask? Those kind of things. Right. And so, it's just funny. And they're all innocent, well-intended comments. That last one was from one of my best friends still to this day, that Bo absolutely loves his Uncle Eric. But when he said that to me, we laugh about it to this day because the insensitivity to it, and he meant nothing by it. But the thing that, Bo has had to do is process being adopted with the mind of a 2-year-old. I mean, we told him when we were reading in books as an infant, as a 10-month-old about adoption, but a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, 15, 20, 25, right? He keeps processing it at different stages of his life. And Bo's incredibly thankful that he was adopted. It's a huge, loving Italian family. There's 8 grandchildren. He's an all-star in the group. I mean, it's amazing. And then we went on to have 2 biological children, a year and 2 years after having Bo. And so, Bella and Stone were born with an older brother in place. Yeah. We had to explain the concept of adoption to them for them to process it, just like we did with Bo. They didn't really much care. It's their brother Bo. It was really kind of not an issue. Yeah. But it is something that it needs to be talked about. I tend to overtalk. Full-blooded Italian. That's what I do. And I probably didn't listen to Bo enough on, Dad, I'm good. We don't need to talk about this. Now a little bit more, he's wanted to talk about it. Yeah. And we're finding our way through that dialogue with no threat and complete appreciation for his birth mother's choice to have him versus not. And he's at a very good place with it right now.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I just, and we could spend another hour or two talking about that stuff. And I encourage people to, contact you. We'll have the contact information at the end if they have questions about that, or you can direct them to people, I'm sure. But that's a whole nother result of how we're living our lives here in the U.S. and globally. So I do agree with you that I applaud the courage of Bo's mom to give him life. And, that's a whole nother thing. Let me go back.
I just want to say,
go ahead.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, because when you mentioned Bo's birth mom, it's something important that I want to say is that, we've come to find out that, over the years, she did have other children before Bo and after Bo, and he is the only one that has been placed for adoption. And she was not able to parent any of the other children actively. And she's, shared some concern that she has about that and remorse. But she is so happy with her decision about placing Bo with a family that, as she has said, has honored what we promised her, to love him and to give him every opportunity in this world. And he's well educated and very successful in his career. And, I could say that from what we understand, that one of the best decisions she made was placing him for adoption. As hard as that was, as selfless as that was, she chose his well-being over her own. And amazing things have happened to our son as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I say, I could go on for a while in that conversation, because it's just it's a great thing. So I my hat's off to her. So let me go back to, if you were to think about what is the main teaching, the main point you're trying to get across in this book about life is hard, but I'll be okay. What is that? What's the message you're trying to give people? What's the hand up that you're trying to give people up?
I'd like, people to understand that, number one, acknowledge that life is meant to be hard. There's no promise that it's meant to be simple. Illnesses, finances, education, relationships, it's hard, right? And so when I came to this title, I was giving a talk to about 400 college seniors, and I was asked what I wish I knew when I was sitting in their seat that would have prepared me for the life that I was going to live. And it was a really wise question from a young man. And the answer came on me pretty quickly. I think God put it on my heart before I had a chance to even process it. And I said, I wish I knew that life will be hard, but I'll be okay. And because at 21, sitting there as a college senior, I didn't think life was going to be hard. I had some, my dad had a brain tumor my senior year of high school, and that was hard. And we got through that. But I was still young and naive, and just, those were things happening out there to other people. And it wasn't, hitting home to me. And so I think that is the message, is that, life is going to be hard. And so how we deal with every circumstance that comes at us is our own choice. We have that power, and we can empower ourselves to self-nourish or self-medicate. And when you go down the self-medicating path, it's dangerous, right? Whether that's alcohol, drugs, whatever that might be, food, all kind of different things, unhealthy relationships. And self-nourishing is recognizing that, yes, this was unfortunate. I would love for this not to have happened, but it did. And so what can I take from this? And I think that's where, adversity really prepares you in life for that next phase of life. It's giving you tools and skills that you can use to conquer what is ahead. And if I'm going to have pain, Dave, I want my pain to have a purpose. I want it to be worth something. I want to endure that pain and not have a missed lesson opportunity there, a missed chance to grow, right? I want to see post-traumatic growth as opposed to post-traumatic stress. And believe me, I have some situations where I do have some PTSD from business scenarios and challenges that have gone on in life. I do have PTSD from bearing our children, right? But I have more post-traumatic growth that outshines that. And so what I'd love people to do when they're in difficult times is ask the question, how will I survive this? And that's an appropriate question initially. How am I going to survive this? But then after you get through that, it's better to ask the next question of, what am I going to learn from this? How can I improve my life from this situation? How can this situation serve me to serve others? And how can I use this situation to be a foundation of growth for me? And if we commit to that mindset And Dave, I'm a guy with anxiety. I'm a very active thinker. I worry about everything. So this is a challenge for me. It's a daily cross to carry. It's not that I mastered this at 29 and now at 55, I'm looking at this saying, boy, am I glad that I nailed that tool in my tool belt well. And because it's daily, I fight it, right? I have thoughts come in my head daily that I recognize, Johnny, you don't have to do a darn thing with that thought. You could just process. You don't have to process it. You could just let it go. There is nothing you need to do with it. And so fight for that thinking daily with whether it's meditation, it's active prayer, and it's good, honest self-reflection of looking at myself in the mirror and saying, give yourself a break. You got to stop this noise.
Yeah. And it's also based on what you've said before. It's not only how you're going to grow through the experience, but then how can you help others grow, whether you're in a leadership role or coming alongside someone because you've gone through it, and then you can ask them questions or help them get through it themselves. And I'm reminded of Paul's writing in Romans, where, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is just, where he says, but we exalt in our tribulations.
That's
so it's
right.
like, but that's one of the things I have to constantly check myself on is, okay, I know I'm looking at all this positive stuff that's going to happen that we're moving towards, but what happens if it doesn't go well? How am I going to handle that? What am I going to learn from that type of thing? What do those things look like? So I love what you're saying.
Yeah, we should all count on things not all going well, and exalting in those tribulations might appear counterintuitive. I love being countercultural in a good way, not for self-attention and to really make any political statement to me. To me, my countercultural takes are things just like what I'm talking about. Take that tribulation and find gratitude in that, and say that I got through this, and I'm thankful for that experience. And as a leader, when we tie this back to business, and we think about when we go through pain and we get through it, and we've lived in a dark time, and again, ours was so dark and so long, and so much time spent at a cemetery, and all these things that I will only look at it today as being thankful for the growth that I had, because it changed me as a business leader, and because I recognize that the people that I'm leading, they have their own trials, right? They've gone through their dark times. And I might be seeing actions from somebody at work that does not look like them in their past actions. And it's a result of the darkness that they've experienced that I might not know about. And so as a leader, I need to be empathetic towards that. And I need to guide myself in a way that, and lead in a way that is respectful, that what's going on in their home, I might not need to know, but I need to understand that it can be, and I could lead accordingly and ask the right questions.
Yeah, I remember when we moved to a new community when my oldest son, I think, was 8, and I was coaching a lot of soccer. And I met with the registrar, and he said, hey, Dave, I want you to remember one thing. And when you have a kid who's acting up on your team, there's always something going on at home. Mm-hmm. So just be patient with the kid, let it go, be supportive. And, don't feel that it's against you. It most of the time has nothing to do with you at all. And I've found that to be great advice.
So many times in the workplace, we've seen this, and I've had some amazing conversations with people that, I've said countless times, there's, to me, no uncomfortable conversation. You can talk about absolutely anything with respect, honesty, integrity, looking out for the other person's perspective. And so I've had those conversations with employees before that I've had to say, there's something going on that I don't understand. This behavior isn't acceptable. This can't continue. But I want to know if I can understand more why you're doing this. And you share what you're willing to share, and what you need to keep private, you can. But what I found in opening conversations up that way, as opposed to charging at them and yelling and screaming, is opening up that empathetic door. What I saw is people say that, I'm kind of confused by this because I was raised in a house where we're supposed to hate our boss. The manager is the bad guy. they're always beating us up and putting us down. And so when I see you or my boss under your leadership or others taking this other approach and looking like they're caring, I just don't know if I can trust them. I was really raised to not trust the boss. The boss is going to take care of the boss and the company, and the small guy suffers. And so then you get an insight into that household. You get an insight to their childhood and how they were raised. And, that was in them for 18, 20 years, 25 years, maybe still reinforced as a 40-year-old by their parents or family members. They're with us for X amount of hours a day. We have some unwinding to do there and some healing to do. And so when you open up the dialogue, you can find out that, wow, they were raised to dislike me. And damn, I think I'm a pretty likable guy. I'm being really caring and compassionate, and I'm worried about them, and I want their career to grow, and I want them to make more money. Yet they're throwing some punches at me that I don't understand why. Well, You peel back the onion there a little bit, and you understand why. Innocently, they were raised because potentially their parents had those awful bosses that were terrible, and they were yellers and screamers and berated on the people, and nothing was ever good enough, and there were no celebrations at work. And, you got to understand that, and you got to lead your way through that.
Yeah. And my sense is, correct me if I'm wrong, my sense is that on at least one of those occasions, you said to the person, I'm sorry you went through that, but I'd like you to learn how to trust somebody, and you can start with me. So I want an open dialogue. Anytime I mess up, I just ask you to use a nice tone of voice, but I want you to just tell me, hey, you really were a jerk, or you were, whatever. As long as you use a nice tone of voice, I need to hear it. And you probably went back and checked with them once in a while. Am I right, Johnny?
Absolutely, Dave. I love the way you phrased it. And I hope that I have phrased it in my 30 years of being a boss and a leader that eloquently, but that's exactly right. Because, and I have said that in so many ways, and even asking the group, hey, I want feedback here because I'm in a space that I'm really comfortable saying, I don't know what I don't know. And I've led my way through spaces before saying, hey, gang, I don't know what I don't know here. So I need all of you chipping in saying, you know what, Johnny, it looks like you're turning right. You're going the wrong way. I welcome that. And, there's a concept of seeking to understand. And when I do public speaking, I tell audiences at the beginning, I love communication back and forth. And so hopefully, if I do my job well, you're going to seek to understand what the messages I'm trying to get across. But if I'm not clear, stand up, raise your hand, interrupt me. I'm all good with that, because if I need to restate something and clarify it, I'm happy to. And if I restate it and clarify it and you don't agree with it, I'm cool with that too, right? I am not the all-knowing. I am not where, the verdict lands on everything. This is one guy's view through my life experiences. So if we disagree on something, I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. And we can respect each other in the process. And I'm going to seek to understand from your perspective what else that I'm missing, right? And so it could take some conversations derailed when I'm doing public speaking at times, but it's fun. I love being challenged that way respectfully.
Well, it makes them real. And Johnny, now that we've warmed up for about a half an hour, for the next 4 hours of our conversation, what I'd like to talk about, I really could just keep going. And I have a little bit of a bias because you have that Italian background. My grandfather was a Scottish, hard-driving, quote-unquote, self-made man, a Republican in politics. And he met a guy, Joe Tarantino, in San Francisco politics, Italian, obviously, Democrat. And they became best friends. And Joe and his wife, Madeline, who was French, were part of our family. Although they had a huge Italian family, Right. But I grew up with just a love for Uncle Joe. He was just a wonderful guy. And it sounds like you've got that Italian family thing going on. By the way, I'm not saying only Italians can have great families. Any culture, heritage can do that. But I feel like we're just getting started. And I wish we had more time. I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. People need to buy your book. Life is hard, but I'll be okay. I do recommend that. I'm certainly going to pick up a copy and I will read it. And is there anything you want to close with, closing thought, or where if people want to learn more about what you're doing, where they can go on the web, whatever?
Absolutely. So my website is encourage33.com. And so you'll find out I have a small family office since I retired about 5 years ago. Or I say retired, I've really repurposed my life into investing in businesses and leadership consulting and adoption focus and talking about a lot of things that are passionate to me. So encourage33.com. And actually my company name, as you quoted scripture earlier, it's from Thessalonians 5:11. So encourage one another and lift each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And I prayed on that verse, and I thought, you know what? I do love encouraging people. So Encourage LLC is my company. 33 is just a special number religiously, but also for my family as well. So that's why it's encourage33.com. On Instagram, at Johnny Serpilla. And the book is available on Amazon. We just hit international bestseller distinction in about 19 different categories. So really honored with that. And the launch has gone extremely well. So I'm very thankful for those who have bought the book and read it. We do encourage reviews because people are learning. I'm seeing beautiful reviews posted that somebody that, is pregnant, a new dad that just posted about, how great it is for him to see his fatherhood taken seriously going forward in a different way than he envisioned because things happened easily for them. So it's also available anywhere really online books are sold. The audio book will be coming out soon, but right now the ebook and the paper book are available on Amazon. So if you put in Serpilla or Life is Hard, but I'll be okay, you'll find it.
Fabulous. Hey, thanks. It's been an honor having you on the show, Johnny.
Appreciate you, Dave. Thanks for what you're doing out there. You're creating great dialogue and conversation. I really enjoy listening.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you liked the episode with Johnny, please subscribe, leave us a comment or a rating. We'd love to hear from you, and stay tuned. We've got more great guests coming. Bye for now.